If you asked me and you gave me a decision to pick between being a vampire and a werewolf, I would choose being a werewolf 99.9% of the time. And not because of, I'm a furry or anything. Imagine me as a furry. But no, it's because werewolves have aura, okay? They genuinely do have aura. They have that sense of like presence. They have this appeal to them that the vampires over the years have truly lost, because through media we've seen this propaganda of vampires having been the king of the monsters, being like the apex predators of the wilderness, and werewolves just being like henchmen, which I didn't like it, because werewolves are literally one of the best creatures in like folk tales and fantasy type of stories, because firstly, I don't give a damn if you tell me, bro, but transforming into a werewolf is very painful and whatever. I'm like, so? Isn't transforming into a Hulk even worse, because Bruce Banner literally made a deal with the Hulk, and now they have like this crazy transformation where they literally have to rip that guy open just to ensure that he feels all the pain. Granted, Bruce and Hulk have a strange relationship, even though they are one person, but they have this weird, dynamic. It's neither here or there. I just like the Hulk and talking about, his dynamic with Bruce and whatever. But back to the werewolves. Werewolves. The reason why I also like werewolves is also due to Van Helsing. If you watch Van Helsing, is this other movie starring Hugh Jackman where he plays this vampire hunter called Van Helsing. Get it? And he hunts down monsters, and he's gonna hunt down the big bad, who's AKA Dracula. But turns out Hugh Jackman, aka Van Helsing, got bitten by a werewolf, but it wasn't actually shown until like the middle part of the movie, where we actually see the side effects of him being bitten by a vampire. I mean, bitten by a werewolf. And then at the end of the movie, almost at the end of the movie, we see Hugh Jackman fighting, Dracula, the king of the monsters, and we get stories on why werewolves are literally seen as vampires equals, not lesser beings, because werewolves literally have the capability of fighting like vampires, and he was putting belt to ass to vampire to Dracula, to the point where Dracula was also like begging for his life. He was like, please stop. He was hitting the Green Goblin pose when Toby was about to whoop his ass. And then I was like, bro, I'd rather be a werewolf from that on. But then I watched movies like Twilight later on, where I was like, okay, let me see vampires versus werewolves. And then turns out the werewolves were like actually wolves. I was dead as surprised. I was like, okay, do they have like a second transformation where they get stronger and they transform into like a wolf human hybrid or something like that? But no, they just turn into big ass wolves. And I was literally disappointed. I was feeling like a person who was gonna hit the climax, but was edged to the point where they were like, what the hell, what's the point? Because I literally was like disappointed when I just saw Jacob being like a werewolf, and I was like, okay, let's see the transformation. Then bro was just turned into a wild dog, which are werewolves. Crazy thing that humans domesticated wolves to the point where they transform into like dogs and whatever. Cool fact. And I was like, okay, this is kind of like weird in a sense that I see why people don't want to pick a werewolf, because maybe the transformation, the burnouts, the pain, and whatever. But I'm promising you, after the like first 10 transformation, it'll just feel like a regular transformation at that point, because you gotten used to the transformations or whatever. Plus, you'll have like stretch marks, which is not that deep personally, because I have like hella stretch marks, but it's neither here or there too, because being a vampire has a lot, and I mean like a lot of drawbacks. Firstly, you live forever, you're basically immortal, and you have to either have like uh blood, you have to suck blood from either animals or humans, which ew. Secondly, you can't go out to like the sun and whatever, or else you might die and turn into ashes. You are allergic to holy water, which I think that's all monsters weakness. Also getting hit by a silver bullet, I think that's a werewolf's weakness. If I'm not mistaken, it is a werewolf's weakness. and being hit with the stake to the heart, which is literally everybody's weakness. Fire, everybody's weakness. Yo, you can't even eat like garlic, anything, which is gonna be like a huge like downgrade because there's a lot of good foods that you know have garlic and whatever. Plus, turns out after the movie Sinners, I just found out that vampires can traditionally get into like houses without you permitting them to enter, which I'm like, what? That's kind of like a crazy rule. And then I'm just comparing the two. Like the only downside of being like a werewolf is that you might have like a more like you need more consumption because you might burn out quicker, so you need to have like a lot of calories and eat a lot, and which is gonna be expensive because god damn the food prices is fucking like too high for somebody to consume. But it's neither here. I just wanna like jump around, bro. I just wanna like hit the full moon and just be like, oh, that's like aura for me, because being a werewolf is like 10 times better than being a vampire. Because firstly you age like a bit slower than regular humans, I'm pretty sure. And then you also get like you basically have like a human buff, like your base form is basically buffed by a, like, let me just say like two to three times like regular human strength. And then when you get like full transformation, maybe it's like 10 times the strength or 8 times the strength of a regular human. And you just have like a lot, and I mean a lot of like upsides, excuse me. And that's why I want to be like a werewolf versus like vampire debate. Sorry, that's why I see like the vampire versus werewolf debate is kind of pointless, because werewolves are literally just aura monsters, and I just don't like seeing media portraying like werewolves as either dumb or being like lesser beings and whatever, because that's being disingenuous and being like hypocritical. And the vampire upscaling has to stop, because after seeing Van Helsing yet again, I see why werewolves are literally on par to flipping vampires. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say. If you have like a more interesting, topic to the argument between vampires and werewolves, please share it down in the comment section. Love y'all. This is Matt shining out. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.